Revealing John's Truthful Words, Part 28, and I'm starting at chapter 18 of verse 20. And I left off with Peter denying Jesus once, and the high priest is now questioning Jesus about his teaching. Jesus says to him, I have taught in our synagogues and by his house, and I did not teach in secret. I have openly spoke the word I've always taught. This is kind of not really needed. It's just a bunch of extra words, doubling up of things. All Jews come together. They aren't Jews. Jews are the ones that have left our Creator. So Jesus surely would not use those words. And I did not teach in secret. So Jesus is saying that he isn't kind of like a not trying to be noticed, okay, because he isn't by the gate of the house. So why do you question me? Question those who you too have heard what I taught. This here is not really needed to be said because they were there, so you too have heard I taught. So they don't need to question those who also heard from Jesus, because they knew that he was teaching. That's how they knew who Jesus was. You too have heard what I've taught them. Some here know what I taught. And I could add the word and here, and some here, which would be like the guards at the gate. So, and some here know what I taught. Okay. Then he said this. No, when he said this, one of the officers. Now here we have the word officers finally. I think I had to add it before in many places, but now the text is telling you that the high priests have officers. Officers slapped Jesus and asked him, "Is that the way you are to answer your high priest?" So, I think that's pretty simple to be edited. You don't need to be told every word why. Jesus answered him, if I am wrong, bring witness of my wrong. I was truthful, so why did you strike me? So he's pretty much taking a one-on-one conversation with the officer that slapped him. Now, this would mean, though, that when Jesus was teaching, they had stationed their officers there when they weren't there to watch what was going on. This here is the high priest when he was a child, so that's not wrong, or this is just wrong. John seems to be putting a lot of little extra text words into the text that are not truthful by the other stories. He was sent to Herod, who was the governor over Israel. They had divided into 3 regions. You've seen those maps I've showed before. So you don't need to know. You only need to know that it wasn't to this guy. They had bound him and led him to, or Pilate had sent him to Herod. Yeah, I almost forgot what I was talking about there. No, I can't have Peter warming himself anymore, so he's gone. That can't be added. And then again, someone asked, and I'm using the word Peter from here, the name Peter, putting it over here. Again, someone asked Peter, "Are you one of his disciples?" And he said, "I am not one of his." Then one of the attendants for the high priest, okay, now this is where I'm not using the word officers. He would have, the attendant for the high priest asked him, "Did I not see you with him?" Not in the garden. They're trying to make it that he was at a garden, and I explained that in either last video or the video before, how truthful the words are in the other books. And here, this guy is trying to be made a relative of one whose ear Peter cut off. Well, if they would have known Peter cut off his ear, they would have known he was there. So this is not true. They would have recognized him as he is and made the claim he is, but have to be truthful here before him to deny him 3 times. One of the attendants for the high priest just asked him, this is all untruthful. So after Peter denied him, doesn't need to be again, a rooster crowed. Then they led Jesus, therefore, from Caiaphas to Praetorium. That is a Roman. Let me just to understand before I start talking here. This here is like where the guards hang out, or the place where the guards. So why would they lead them to there? Into first they guys in they let him into it, and then they themselves did not enter. That's pretty quickly saying something and not saying it's true. But why would they take him to this guard's room when they're taking him to Pilate? In order that they might not be defiled, and that they might eat the Passover. There's only one way to be defiled from not eating the Passover. When they were in the Sinai, one of the tribes came up to him and said, there's a law, or can't remember the whole story, but they were talking about these men have just touched a dead body, helped remove the body and bury the body. So are they supposed to partake in the um, Passover meal? And our Creator told them no. The next holy day, which would have been the 8th day. So then they were to eat. So this they would know that they could eat the Passover the next week, so or next and then in 7 days anyway. But that's the only reason why they can be defiled, touching a dead body. So they led Jesus to Pilate, and he asked Caiaphas, "What charges do you bring against this male?" I just changed the word accusation to charges for 12-year-olds to understand the text. He said, "This male is against Rome." You can't be an evildoer. I'm using the word evildoer to represent those who are against our Creator. But he is against Rome because he's been proclaiming he's a king. So, and that's only because I know the other stories. So, against Rome. So we are to deliver him to you, not deliver him up to you, but to you. Pilate said, judge him according to your laws, because they haven't told him why they're delivering up to him. We know that, but and Caiaphas says, we are not permitted to kill anyone. Put anyone to death would be to kill him, so just use one word instead of two. So here they now have to explain what he done that was able to be killed for. This is just nonsense, so that's, yeah, it's not might be. And anyways, that's just not truthful. Therefore entered into, no, uh, why would the governor go to this place? It doesn't make sense. None of the other stories have Pilate or Pontius being removed. They come to him in his governor's home, and then he's got this place to meet the crowd at and to deliver his verdicts or his judgments against their people, against Israelis or Hebrews. Well, it summoned Jesus and asked him, are you the king for the Jews? Jesus replied, didn't answer, but he replied, are you saying this because they told you about me on your own initiative, or did others? This this would have to be that they had to have told him, they told you about me. Because otherwise than that, there's not enough text here to tell him why they're bringing him. For him to turn around and ask Jesus, king for Jews. There's so much missing in this text. John's the crappiest of the four books, and you can see even when you try to break them down, there's so much missing in between the text as well. Well, Pilate answered, your tribe's priest delivered you to me for what you have taught. Now this is getting to, you taught, and that would have been he is a king. So now we have the understanding that this verse here might be going above, because even this doesn't make sense. A lot of these words aren't going to be, Jesus is standing there making accusations, so why would he be summoned? I corrected the verses, but even these verses aren't going to be full truth here when we put them together. Jesus said, my kingdom is in heaven. It is not this world. My kingdom is in heaven. So this is what he's replying to him. If my kingdom were of my servants would be fighting that I might not be delivered up to the Jews, and my kingdom is not of this realm. So he's saying it twice, but the object is until he has his kingdom, can he have servants? So this is not anything Jesus would be speaking out of order. So it's just my kingdom is in heaven. Pilate said, so you are a king. Jesus answered, you are correct, not correctly, but you are correct. But I am a king, this I have been born and come to the world to bear witness of truth. This he would be trying to teach Pilate the Hebrew prophecies from our Creator, and he's just not going to say these things. Then Pilate asked, what kind of answer is this? Now this is good, because when it comes up to here, my kingdom is in heaven, and then he says, you are a king. He says, yes, you answered correctly. he's Pilate's trying to say, well, look, I don't understand all that. If you're a king on earth, then I understand the word king, but so what kind of answer is this? Not what kind of truth. What truth is this? What kind of answer is this? Um, and here they have him leaving this place that they have Jesus at. So that's just that's just in John, not in all the rest of them. And I'm not gonna have that added. Just when you put the verses together, you'll see why that can't be there. Um, because when they accuse Jesus of many other things that we don't have written here, he asked Jesus who's standing there, so he didn't summon for him. They're not in another place. They just brought him to Pilate. Um, to the Jews, well, we know that the high priest is the one who's in charge, and he's talking to the person in charge. He isn't going to talk to his underlings. So he's going to be talking to the high priest and said, I find no guilty for death for him. Now, even by Jesus's answer is not that he's a king on earth, he's a king in heaven. And you got to understand, the Romans didn't believe, they had their own gods. So this, gee, I wonder if they even believe that. I don't know. I forgot what I studied so long ago. I don't know if the Greeks teach that there's a heaven and people go to heaven. But anyways, in all his understanding of the law, he is there's no death because he's not proclaiming a king on earth, so he's not against the Romans. And Cyprus said, but it is not our custom but it is our custom that you release someone for our Passover. And we do not want you to release Jesus. They wouldn't have said, yeah, the King of the Jews. Then their crowd cried out, not this male, but Barnabas, Barnabas the robber and murderer. You crucify a murderer, not a robber. It's also from the other stories as well. Then Pilate had Jesus beaten. I didn't have it scourged, I just beaten. And the soldiers wove a crown of thorn and put it on his head. Then they placed a purple robe on him. Then they arrayed him with a purple robe. Then they placed a purple robe on him. Or do I say, then they put, because, I got to do it that way. Then they put, now where'd they get this? You got me, okay? The story has to be truthful, so where did they get that? And actually, I think it's going to be that when he went to Herod, that's the robe that they're talking about, because when you read the stories, you got to remember there's only one other book has the story about Herod. So Herod took his robe on him and then sent him back to, this would have been coming back. So the stories aren't lining up exactly truthful. I know the parts of that they're trying to say where these things are coming from, but anyways, as they came to him, they hailed as they came up to him. Yes. Put a robe on him. And then as they came to him, I'm going to have to use the word up to him because they're going to try treating him like a king. They put a robe on him. And as they came up to him, they said, Hail. They not really came up or come up to him. As they bowed before him, you would say that before, or was that how they would have said it? And as they bowed to him, as they, yeah, I think that's more truthful than what I had before. I said, Hail, King of the Jews, and then hit him. Not blows, but hit him. And hit him in the face. Um, Blows. I think it should be related maybe to a slap. Yeah, here you can see the word slap is being used. But in the face is all added text. So if that wasn't in the original text and they're adding that, gave him, we would know it was in the face. So let's see here. I'm going to put, instead of hit, slapped. And then slapped him. Then Pilate said to their crowd, so here we got to have Jesus coming back from there. That's not mentioned. Then Pilate came out and said, now here he has to be at his judgment here, Pilate. But the words are missing, so some of this is going to be, you got to understand that Jesus is, according to this, whatever text is getting cleaned up, has to be that he's sitting on his judgment seat and he's bringing Jesus, bringing him out, and he's going to make his judgment on him. Then Pilate said to their crowd, I will release him now, for I found him not guilty of death. Okay. Still not wanting to kill him goes with the other stories or another story. So um, it would be then Jesus came out, said to the crowd. Okay, now this is where he's coming out. Okay. Jesus came out wearing a crown of thorns and a purple robe. Then Pilate said, "Look at him." When our tribe's priest and people saw him, people, these would have been the corrupt ones that the high priest could have ordered a group of the Jews to be on his side, to crowd, crucify, crucify him. So I have to use the word people because there's not enough to convince him when he's bringing him out from the judgment chair. In this chair, I don't know how much higher it is, or is there a wall before that? It seems that there's not really a wall, but there's this chair that he's going to sit in. Maybe it's higher up in this platform. Jesus is standing on as well, and he's talking to him, and they're close enough to him where they're putting their influence on him, and he's trying to say that I found no guilt of death. Some of their crowd answered, "We have a law, and by that law he is to die, for he made himself equal to our God." Um, because our Creator judges people, our Creator, um, I'm just trying to show you why they would use the word equal here, um, because they know he sits at the right hand of the Father, and on the earthly example, that's what our Creator gave us on the earthly example, is that he's sitting at his right would be the king, and then his son would sit at his right, um, to be equal of the judgment. But it is our Creator who judges who goes to heaven, is the way they were probably seeing it. So they were saying he makes him equal to our God. And the word God here is being used as the word like Romans would understand it, not as awesome Creator, but a God of this, a God of that, whatever, but equal to our God. Um, Now this, when Pilate heard this, he spake to Jesus, "Do you know I have the authority to release you or to crucify you?" Yeah, because he wouldn't have been more afraid, because most likely he knew that well, he wouldn't have known. I guess I am putting words in his mouth. I guess he would have known that the difference between uh, what a God does and what God does not do. So he wouldn't have been more afraid that he's related to the Hebrew God. Okay, so, and that's why this word will never be a capital G. It's in relationship to their God. So when Pilate heard this, he entered again, and no, Jesus is standing there before him. So he spake to Jesus, "Do you know I have the authority to release you or crucify you?" So I don't know why that's being even asked now, because it's been asked once before, but I guess they're saying crucify you in this one. Jesus answered, "You'd have no authority over me unless it had not been given to you." And it doesn't need to be from above, because he doesn't understand the Hebrew um, a way of life. For this reason, he who delivered me up to you has a greater sin. He wouldn't be telling, uh, conscience wouldn't care what the word sin means anyway. So, um, yeah, that's it reads better down here than it does up there. Um, Well, I've got to get off screen for a second here. I'm hearing myself echo in my head, so I must have sinus problems, but only 10 more minutes, so maybe we'll see how this goes. Then Pilate made another effort to release them, but I'm going to use the word Jews here. No, people, because I'm using the word Jews as another reason, but people cried out saying, if you release this male, you are no friend of Caesar's. For everyone who makes himself out to be our king opposes Caesar. Now that would have got Caesar's or Pilate's attention. Then when Pilate heard these words, he had them bring Jesus before him, and then he sat down in his judgment seat. This is just, it doesn't need to be there. Let's see, it doesn't even tell him he judged him to be crucified. I don't know how many people could even actually teach from John without adding a lot to the text when you're talking about these verses. But I'm sure some do. They make it up as they go along. And it was on our day for preparation. Well, it was sacrificing a ram for his passing over our firstborn sons. I feel that I'm needing to add this in to make sure people understand the story as it goes through. And in the 5th hour, he said, look at your king. Okay, now it's kind of telling us what day that was. Like this verse here should have been before here. And then he would have just said, he said, behold your king. And they cried out, crucify him. Pilate said to them, by your will I rule to crucify your king. Our tribe's priests answered him, we have no king, only Caesar. Then they ordered that he is to be crucified. I'm going to put Jesus here. I'm reading too many he's, hims, and not getting when I colored it red, it makes sense. But okay. This verse here reads so out of place. It needs to be moved someplace else. In this 5th hour, I know the 5th hour is mentioned above, but when it goes together with the other stories, it is at the 5th hour. It's going to be hard to say. Remember, they had 12 hours in the daylight, and so we have to remember that to know that this is still before midday. Yeah, I'm going to leave it there. I've got trouble hearing. My hearing is really screwed up. Got to take a couple sinus pills or something.